spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ spreads confusion and
Let's go.
Hey everybody, it's January 12th, 2012, if you can believe it. And this is Non-Religious Life. I'm your host, Ken. With me all the way across the other side of the country, we have Jason.
Hello.
And Bob.
How's it going?
And we have a special guest, Cara McKinney.
Hello.
In studio.
In
Not
zombie popcorn headquarters.
Live. Yes.
Woo.
So
there's something weird about this one, though.
What's that?
She doesn't look like the rest of them.
Yeah.
You're our first. We've had a
Thank
couple
you.
guests.
That's a compliment.
And they've always been dudes, and you're the first.
I'm
guest.
the. Am I the virgin or you're the virgin?
You're a trailblazer.
scared.
That's what it's gonna be.
Anyway, move along.
Yes, move along.
So I guess I'll turn it over to you, Cara, to introduce yourself to all of our listeners.
Okay. My name is Cara McKinney. I'm from Virginia. I'm 29 years old. I currently live in Texas. Yes, it's very interesting. And I'm visiting, and I'm returning to Texas tomorrow, actually today. So I'm looking forward to talking to you guys before I head out to the Bible Belt, more southern Bible Belt.
Well, so I wanted to ask you on the show. I thought it'd be a really fun discussion because of all the people I know, of everybody I've met, that you are probably one of the more outspoken atheists I've ever known.
Oh yes, I'm very vocal about it.
Because you're a singer. That's
I'm very. I guess you'd say I'm extroverted in some ways. Yeah, about it.
But you're also not in everybody's face about it. I mean, I haven't seen you like holding the sign and yelling.
Right. Well, I don't tend to get into. I write about it more. I don't really get into conversations about it too much because I just don't have the time. But when I do write about it, I have time. Well, I do have the time to think thoughtful and articulate what I want to say. So, but I also know that social boundaries, especially living in Texas right now. I mean, you got to watch what you say. Especially, I'm a singer, so. I'm a classical singer, so to get classical gigs, usually it's church related. So I have to sing a lot of religious music, so don't want to ruffle too many feathers in that community. But
she's an infiltrator.
Yes. They've found me out a couple places, but they're trying to save me. So,
as long as they're praying.
But yeah, I'm pretty proud about being so outspoken about it. I do get a lot of flack for it, of course. People are worried that I'm, discriminated against. It's funny how people's views will change automatically about you. So it's very interesting.
So I guess the $1 million question is, what made you decide to give up religion?
Well, it was gradual, but I started when I was a kid. My father, for bedtime stories, read me ancient mythology, like Egyptian and Roman and Greek and Native American and Norse mythology, and there was no emphasis on a particular religion. My mother did take me to the Unitarian Church once in a while, but they're very liberal. Like Jefferson was a fan of the Unitarian Church. And I also, during my summers and aftercare, would go to the Jewish Community Center. So I was exposed to all these different religions, and I kind of, figured out, well, they can't all be right. But at first, I thought, well, how are they all right in one way? I tried to find the commonality of all of them, and I did a lot of research, and I also started researching psychology and the neuroscience behind religious experiences. And then I started researching evolution because of psychology, and after a while I became like more of a pantheist, like God is nature, or panentheist, I think that's how you say it, and God is nature but outside of time and space, kind of theology or whatever. But then I started reading more, and I just gradually became more educated about science and more about history of religion and how certain religions had the same themes, like virgin births and resurrections, and how they borrowed from each other, and how psychologically they were very insightful about the human psyche, like Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell and Alan Watts and all those types of people. So it became like an academic thing after a while. And then finally, I just started reading all the arguments against religion, and they just were just ultimately more persuasive. A lot of people think it was like some traumatic life event, like it was some kind of accident or like a death or something traumatic that just made me angry and lost or anything. But it was really just a gradual self-liberation. It was enlightening, very enlightening. It was freeing. So.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that in that. My family, I had like, you know, a super religiously moderate upbringing, and right, there wasn't any tragedy. There was I'm working on the microphone, man, help me out. It was just like you sort of one small step at a time. What am I doing?
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
It's times like this I wish I could see what you guys are doing.
I know, right? He's like got the microphone and I'm all. But right, it wasn't like I lost a beloved family member or something tragic happened. And they're like, why God, why?
Right.
It was just like you just sort of one day you're like, wow, what about the? You know, I don't know. You start asking questions and
it just makes more sense. You
yeah.
know?
You know, I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I can't actually remember an age when I legitimately believed God was real.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I was like, I'm pretty
tried.
sure I stopped believing in God around the same time I stopped believing in Santa Claus, which was really young.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think I ever truly believed.
Right,
I just
me
think
neither.
that there was a time when I rationalized
Right.
the belief. You know, like
It's the belief in belief, like Daniel Dennett.
yeah,
Kind of,
right. It was
kind
right,
of.
exactly. Belief
Yeah.
in belief is exactly what it was. Like, well, I'm supposed to believe, and this is how I can rationalize it in my head. You know, oh, well, I'll just it provides a good moral lesson, or you know, that's what lets me be a good person because I have
Right.
belief in this belief.
Right.
But
That's cool.
no, excuse me. I don't know. I just now I feel better like leaving that behind.
Yeah. And now you hear it from this point, like you hear other people talk like that, and you're like, oh, yeah. And like I was telling you the other day, astrology. My dad would always like, I think it was kind of like a Santa Claus thing. He was like, well, you're a Leo, you're strong, and da-da-da. And I was like, well, I never believed in pop astrology, but I studied like ancient astrology, and I would try to reconcile it, you know, with science. And I was like, this is not adding up, you know, like astrology is not astronomy, you know. And no matter how much it makes me feel good and special to, you know, have the stars aligning just for me to give me this kind of destiny or whatever, it was always like, oh, this is fun. But it was never like I was too lazy to actually study to figure out if it was actually true. And I think later, the older I got, I began to appreciate truth more. I became more passionate about what is true because, especially with religious thinking, if you give license to certain type of thinking about what's true, it affects other people's lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
I do. I think we touched on that a little bit last week when we were talking about intelligent design and how we were talking about like the how science is unfair and biased, but it's biased towards the truth. It doesn't care about anything else except finding out the truth.
Right.
And I think that there's so many other religious ideas that they're not concerned with the truth.
Right.
They're concerned with other things, and albeit those things could be like nice things and noble things.
Right.
But they're not worried about the truth.
No. But then you get those philosophers who are like, well, they're postmodernists, and they want to say, well, the truth is objective, and they want to say that science is subject. They always try to twist it around. I'm like, well, that's nonsense. But something's either true or it isn't. In this universe, we have a law, like laws of physics, and we test it, and we observe, and no matter what my personal feelings are, it doesn't change what's true. No matter how I feel about whether there's a God or not, it doesn't change the fact of whether the hypothesis of a supernatural creator is correct or not. It doesn't matter what I think, you know. Gravity, same thing. You know?
I don't know. I mean, if all of us get together and focus on changing it, it will change.
Yeah.
And psychics, that's another thing.
I'm telling you, we have to go to Mrs. West.
Yeah.
We got to take the show there.
That would be so fun.
Yeah, we. I think I was talking with my friend Kermit, and he's sort of thinking along the same lines. And we've said it before that if you allow even one iota of supernatural element,
It's just kind of lazy.
it undermines all of science. It undermines everything. The whole ball of wax just falls apart because then you have an instance where your experiment works because you prayed or invoked a divine entity, and now mine doesn't because I didn't do it. You know, it's not.
That's very convenient, you know, but yeah. It's like we know every solved mystery was once unsolved, but then when we solved it, it always had, a lot of people thought, oh, since we don't know, it must be God. But now that
Well, they
we do
still do
know,
that.
it's a logical, yeah. But it's getting smaller, that little pocket of the God of the gaps is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because we keep answering these mysteries with natural explanations. So
I wish it was truly getting smaller. I mean, in scientific side of it, it is getting smaller, but in especially here in the States, the perception is not getting smaller. It's actually getting bigger, and
it's a lash, yeah,
it's
backlash or something.
it's very strange. I mean, with people running for president who do the National Day of Prayer or do the Day of Praying, people who are saying that God told them to run and then now they're stepping down, and it's. I don't understand where this hardcore.
Interesting. It's like a paradox. It's like we're so involved technologically. Imagine all the things we have based on science and logic, and we're all so involved. Every religious person you know probably has a phone, or a computer, or a car, and they could probably go to the doctor. But then they have to. I guess they have to balance that out with this religious magical thinking. I don't know what it is.
It's so strange.
It is strange. Human behavior is very interesting, and the brain
And you
is
know
very.
what? We don't understand it, so God must did it.
Of course, which is just lazy.
It's much easier.
I think the two common failures of humans are bad traits, I guess, are fear and laziness. Really, a lot of religion is based on fear of the unknown, right?
Well, that's where a lot of folklore comes from, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I can
But-
see
but
where it
thunder and
manifests.
lightning.
I can see where it manifests into belief. I mean,
But those are exactly God of the gaps beliefs. I mean, here's something unexplained that happens. I don't know. We assign a supernatural entity to it,
An agency
and
to it,
and then
yeah.
it gets explained away by naturalistic worldviews, i.e., science.
it was like
think
when I
it's
went to
also-
Iceland. We were.
You know what it is? I'm sorry to interrupt.
no,
I
yeah.
think it's also the fact that it's just scientific explanations are kind of boring and dry. And people like to jazz stuff up. They want something that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with it. Nobody wants to hear, oh, that's how lightning and thunder is. Oh. And it's also harder to understand. So it takes more time, and it's also boring. So I think that magical hypothesis is much more attractive and flashy. But then again, the older I got, the more beautiful and elegant evolution became. It's like it's so intricate and simple, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It
sorry
doesn't
to
help
interrupt.
that scientists are really, really bad at communicating ideas to non-scientists.
Well, you don't even have to have that. It's like what I was going to say. When I went to Iceland, they're really big in their folklore. That's entrenched in their history, and picked up a couple of books about it and talked to people there, and everyone, even including the books, said as soon as electricity was invented, folklore kind of died off because it killed what was in the shadows.
Yeah.
And it was, and I think that's can be applied today. I just don't understand why we are trying to hang on to. Well, we have the light. We've shined the light in the shadows, and people are still trying to say, "No, there's another shadow."
I was actually watching an interview with Robert M. Price, who I know was on
Yeah,
here.
we had him on the show. That was awesome.
Well, he's an ex-priest or whatever, and he said he still goes to church. He goes to the Episcopal Church, which is one of the churches I used to go dabble in when I sang in choir. But one thing I agree with him about is the beauty of the rituals. Was the traditional, there's something about having a ritual that is very beautiful, except for the bloody part. But there's something attractive about that. But he said it was more attractive now that he knew his mythology and the metaphor and the symbolism of the sacrifice or the symbolism of I guess the kingdom of heaven being inside or whatever, all that. And I don't want to go into a tangent, but anyway.
No, I think Price is an interesting guy to talk to, in that he'll tell you, like he'll say right off the bat, he's like, I have a love of the Bible. He loves it. He really has a passion for it.
Ken,
but he
what are you
also has a
doing?
passion for the truth.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
And
have
and
a
he doesn't
passion
let
for
the
Lord of
two
the
get.
Rings.
He doesn't let the one get in the way of the other. But
Yeah.
I also think that the most brilliant thing that I've ever heard him say was, he talks about the sin of faith, and thinking about why religion is so prevalent. Like, we live in a culture now where faith is considered a virtue. Like, we look at people like, oh my gosh, that person is so faithful. They and we equate that with them being a good person.
Well, they equate it with being courageous, being like being faithful in despite of the mountain of evidence. It's like, it's I guess because you're going up against something that is so insurmountable. I don't know. It's suspending critical thinking, usually, and despite tons of evidence, which I don't think is a virtue at all. But we romanticize it, I guess, because of the courage aspect.
But why do you think we do that? I don't have an answer either. So if you don't,
Well, it's probably more emotional than anything. But I really haven't given it much thought.
The best I could guess would be that it's just something left over from cognitive dissonance about you're faced with that mountain of evidence, and I don't know.
Well, it's like you get these scientists who are still religious, and they believe in evolution, but it doesn't. They try to reconcile it with religion.
I just finished reading the Francis Collins book, the Language of God, and Francis Collins is the guy that he's the Human Genome Project, and now he's the head of the NIH.
He was atheist, and then he had a religious experience.
But
right?
for him, the religious experience was cracking the human genome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was for him, that was his religious experience, and
maybe it was his ego.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But he holds up two big arguments, and I hope to one day really go after these. But he holds up the moral law, which is that our sense of right and wrong is instilled in us by a divine entity, and that makes us unique among all creatures.
Not true, though. It's not true.
Not true. and the anthropic principle that the universe is finely tuned for our existence,
Which is not true either.
which I don't know if that's. I mean, but he always points to this idea that, like, there's things that science can't answer. Like these questions that science can't answer, and I think that is a rapidly outdated philosophy. And Ken, you said it best last week. You said that there's things that science can't answer yet.
Right. Like spiritual experiences, for instance. A lot of people, that's where a lot of atheists stop. There's like, well, these people have these experiences, but in all different religions they have these experiences, and this is, I think there's a natural explanation. Something's going on in the brain. Have you ever heard of Persinger's God helmet?
No.
Where he put a helmet on their head on a specific area. There's electromagnets, and they would have these religious experiences. And according to what religion they were raised or indoctrinated with, they would have a vision of Virgin Mary, or a hippie would have like oneness with the universe, and atheists would have this out of body experience, or some people would see aliens or whatever. But I think it's just as supernatural as the orgasm. I mean, the orgasm is a wonderful feeling, right? And so is a spiritual experience you get from listening to a beautiful song, getting goosebumps and all that. But is it supernatural in origin? No. And now we know how an orgasm works. We just don't know how these spiritual experiences work yet, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Bob blushes more than anybody
Well,
on
when
this
a man and a woman get together,
They played checkers.
when they fall in love.
Oh.
Well,
No,
right. I think
you
that
have it
those
right
things
there.
have a biologic cause that we could know, maybe.
We do know, don't we?
I mean, drugs, we have hallucinations. I mean, the brain is so susceptible. Eyewitness testimony is,
A testimony of the worst kind.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many studies have been done where witness testimony is debunked? I mean, people, and they have such strong convictions about something they saw or something, their memory, they're so, confident about it, but it turns out wrong a huge amount of the time.
Yeah.
You know?
This
How does
American
it go?
Life has a program on their website that you can see. It's about perceptions, and it talks about husband and wife. And there's a story. One of the stories where a husband and wife went to New York, and they saw somebody famous. I forget who it was exactly. And the husband is explaining exactly what happened, how they were across the street, and they look up, and this famous person is waving, and they're like, "Oh!" So they, his wife waves back, and in fact, what happened was the famous person was hailing a cab, and they felt embarrassed and stuff. And the husband is explaining this whole story, and at the end of it, the wife looks at him and goes, "How do you know you were not there?" And because she told him the story, and they've told it as stories, the whole purpose of This American Life was how he hijacked the story and injected himself into the story when he wasn't even there.
Oh, I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. I've seen it.
I mean, if you're with somebody for very long, I think it's got to happen to me and Miley, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, it's just our mind is so acceptable to putting ourselves in places that we're not and seeing things that are not really there.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm sure his memory is precise and clear.
Yeah,
and
he's not
and
crazy, and
His
he's-
retelling is sincere. He's not like purposefully making it up.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear it in the actual episode, because when they break it down and prove that he was not there, you could hear his voice kind of drop. He's like, "Oh," so he was
Humbling
sincere.
experience. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
it's
that
like
stuff
the-
happens all the time.
Yeah.
You can get, and I know there were a series of like psychological studies done I think it was in the 80s, where they actually took kids and induced memories into them. And it was just simple things, but then it was like that the kids totally, at first they were like, what? And then they adopted it.
Yeah.
It was like Bob
Memory's
too.
very
He thinks
fluid.
he sends you a text message and he does.
I do.
Yes.
Yeah, that perception idea is that's crazy. There's another. We're bouncing around studies. Did you ever see the study with the where they have a group of people in a circle and they're passing basketballs back and forth? And the study was done. They had people down and they showed them this video, and they said, "All right, what we want you to do, your task is to count how many times the basketball gets passed from person to person. Like count how many, I don't know, it's like count how many bounces or something it makes." And so they're paying very close attention to one aspect of this video. And when it was over, they would ask them, like, "Well, did you see anything unusual in the video?" And nobody said, or everybody said, "No, I didn't see anything." And then they re-showed them the video and said, "Watch. In the middle of this crowd, a person in a gorilla suit is going to come out and dance around and then walk off camera, and you didn't see that at all. Nobody perceived the man in the gorilla suit.
Yeah, you can see those videos online on YouTube. They have a whole series of them that you can watch, and they're fascinating. They get you every time.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's probably every experience of the mind you could probably find a biologic cause for.
Yeah,
like
empathy
even now,
too. They keep testing empathy. Where they had a study where they used magnets on the part of the brain that's associated with empathy, and with the magnets, people's threshold for morality lessened. They would give them a scenario and say, there's a murder happening, and they would rate it, good to bad. Bad is 10, and with the magnets on this part of their brain, they would rate it. Oh, it's like a 4. And badness, a murder,
It's
without the
bad.
magnets, it was like 8, 9, 10, it's very interesting and then they think that's why sociopaths, not only are their environments usually very traumatic, but I guess their brains don't, develop correctly, but either that part of the brain is smaller or it just has less activity, which is very interesting. And then adrenal glands being too big and the frontal lobes being too small, like Hitchens always says. He's like, that's the big problem. He says our frontal lobes are just not big enough. And that's one of the reasons we're so different from other primates, because that frontal lobe, we're allowed to predict and plan the future. We're one of the only prime species that knows we're going to die. And the fear of death is so, that's one of the reasons religion will never die. And Freud said it, As long as we're afraid of death, we're always going to have religion.
No, I think that's pretty profound and probably true.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
I'm high on hydrocodone, folks, so
I'm buying
forgive
everybody
me.
magnet bracelets.
Yeah, the magic
Did you want to
bracelet.
talk about why women are...
No.
Yes,
Yeah, there's
I
enough
did.
women for
Whatever.
today.
so another one reason I definitely wanted to have you on the show. Not only are you an outspoken atheist, but you're also a certified real girl.
Yes.
And I think that
I still don't believe it's true because there's no way.
Well, I have faith. You should too.
yeah, but you're the first woman guest we've ever had on the show. The first woman guest that I think we'll probably have for a while. I don't know. I can't think of.
With that attitude, yeah.
Right. That's where I've been going wrong all these years. But yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about like what it's like to be a woman and an atheist, or why you think there's so few women in atheism?
Just cut it off right before and an atheist.
Well, I think there's a lot
What's
of
it like to put on
reasons.
makeup every day?
Oh my gosh.
We did that Thursday.
Well, if you think about it, religion is very unkind to women. Scripture is very unkind to women. And I think a lot of it has to do with the oppressed creature, I guess. Oppressed minorities are more susceptible to religious and magical thinking. And in society, girls are, a lot of the time they're supposed to be good and not challenging and outspoken. You do what you're told. Unfortunately, hopefully that stereotype is going to stop. But I think it's kind of like Stockholm syndrome in a way. You know what I mean? I think it's more comforting. I noticed that a lot of minorities have a higher percentage of religious faith because of, I guess, the comfort levels. I meet a lot of homosexuals and African Americans that are very religious, and I always think, I'm like, well, especially with Christianity, I'm like, well, the Bible is like for slavery and stoning of homosexuals. I'm like, I don't understand, and women, being raped constantly in the Bible. I'm like, what is it? So that's why I think it's like a Stockholm syndrome. But I think it instills like this sense of guilt, and you want to be forgiven, so it's trying to be accepted. And that's another thing. We're very tribal, women and men alike. You know, we want to be accepted, and I think that's another reason. And sometimes I think women are just a little bit more gullible than men. I don't know. I guess women are not normally exposed to as much science and math as men. And I think they're encouraged to use a lot more abstract and creative thinking, I suppose. But I definitely do think it's a lot to do with minorities being more attracted to comforting ideas. And lower self-esteem, less confidence will produce less outspoken people. So I think one of the reasons, you know, that I'm more outspoken is because I do have a certain level of confidence. But I was also very lucky to have the luxury of the time to actually study these arguments. And I was lucky that I wasn't indoctrinated by my parents to believe, you know, that. And, you know, a lot of women don't have a lot of role models. And a lot of women, another thing is a lot of girls are brought up in these, they sing in choirs growing up. And they're usually, even if they're not religious, their parents might send them to a church choir. And so they are exposed to a lot of religious talk there.
The pageantry.
Yeah. I think it's a very complicated subject, but I do think it has something to do with the idea that women, this tradition that patriarchal society, women are inferior, they have to apologize for it. And you have to be forgiven for your sins. That's very prominent in this culture. And then the other way around, I'm not really sure psychologically if women weren't exposed to religion at all growing up, if they would be more susceptible to magical religious thinking, supernatural, whatever, or not. I mean, I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. I like
What
that.
do you think?
I think you hit on a lot of really true things there, especially in our society where women are usually deemed to be more emotional and less logical
Right.
than men.
It's,
And
yeah,
therefore, I mean, women hardly ever
I hate to say
get
it, but it's
interested
kind
in
of true.
mathematics or science, and it's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
But
We're taught to be more complacent, you know, be a good girl, you know what I mean? And yeah, use your emotions to guide you. I mean, but the thing is, it's hard to tell yourself just because something's comforting doesn't mean it's true, you know? And if you're an oppressed minority, I mean, it's not so bad in the US, but I can definitely relate to the idea that if you've been, you know, treated less than others around you, that you would be more susceptible to having an attachment figure. You know, maybe it's even deeper than that, like the daddy figure, the sky daddy. Like a lot of women, you know, men have their, you know, their mama's boys and there's daddy's girls, and I think, you know, a lot of women who don't have good fathers might attach to this supernatural daddy that's always going to take care of them in life and after life. And I think women are a little more attached naturally because we're mammals. You know, the females are usually more nurturing. I guess they're more likely to not ruffle feathers and just be nice about what people think religiously. And they don't want to challenge people's beliefs because they don't want to hurt their feelings. You know, like nobody wants to tell their dying grandmother on her deathbed, you know, that, you know, there's no such thing as, you know, heaven or hell or whatever, which a good thing is there's no such thing as hell. But I think maybe women are more sensitive to that, I guess, than men. Is that sexist to me? Just like they're more emotional, less logical.
I think that
I think it's just more encouraged to be less logical for women. But go ahead, sorry.
No, I think that we'd be foolish to not recognize.
That's for me.
I think we'd be foolish to not recognize that there are gender differences.
There is.
And those. I mean, I'm not saying that women are not as smart or men are smart. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that
there's
we
definitely
should
no
recognize
evidence
that
to prove that.
there are gender differences, and that and at the end of the day, it all sort of plays out to a zero-sum game. But
I think it's more social than anything.
Well, I definitely
They're
think
more
it's
socially oriented and being, go ahead.
No, I think it's kind of like the idea of back when Barbie came out with the talking Barbie, and it says math is hard, and everybody.
That was actually Malibu Stacy.
No, but there was a real
I'm so
it was
glad
based
you
on a
knew
real life, or it was science was hard, or there was something, and there's an outcry for it. But yeah, I think overall, in a blanket view, I think the ideas of women being more emotional than men still exist. I don't think there's any ounce of evidence that in real life practice that backs it up.
I think women express it more.
I think women are more active, and they're just more active in a different way than what men would do it. And I think it's just societal pushes us in those directions. If you look at not the nonprofit world, and if you look at groups that are doing things to improve society, if you look at social justice movements, even if you look at the animal rights movement, it's mainly women who are running those groups, and that is more empowering. That is more don't know what the word I'm looking for, but that is more I guess empowering and doing more than what a guy being macho and tough and strong. It's actually being more effective. And I would love to think that the idea that women are irrational and more emotional are dying off. I don't see it. I mean, every one of my heroes and every one of the people who've progressed me to the next plateau in my life have been female figures, and I think that's happening more and more for men now than it's ever that I've ever seen it. But maybe it's just because I'm older, I'm noticing it more. But
You're old, Jason.
I am old, yes. And growing up from Texas, living there. That place is weird about women.
Well, yeah, there's stereotypes about atheists that were angry, lost, or whatever. I mean, that's another thing about women don't want to be seen that way. I don't think, the stereotype about female atheists is that they're kind of, angry, I guess, and they wear nerdy glasses and you know what I mean? But I mean,
way to fit the stereotype.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it though, like the Janine Garofalo types, I guess. So I don't even know if she's atheist, but
she is.
if you think, I mean, what I always think about is the fact that we were talking about Thomas Jefferson's time, and how women back then weren't involved in society because there was no birth control and they were just getting pregnant all the time. If they weren't pregnant, they were taking care of children or nursing children, They weren't, I mean, a lot of them didn't read. That's a lot to catch up on. So
how did they read
a
the
lot
Bible?
of when, like, even 50 years, I mean, we weren't allowed to vote until 1920 or whatever. But
right, it's less than 100 years.
Yeah, a lot of women, and like my grandmother, she had to leave school when she was 16 to take care of her 9 siblings. She became caretaker. When do you have time to study science? When do you have that luxury? And that's not long ago at all. I mean,
no,
it's a number of things.
I see it as an education thing, and
definitely.
And I don't know. I think that there's a growing trend among women to be involved in the sciences because education opportunities are. That field is being leveled.
Definitely.
And,
especially with doctors, especially, but right.
But then you can make generalities about that
Physics.
too. You can always say women always go into the life sciences.
Right.
And I don't know if that's true or not. Is it? I mean, I'm certain that, and like I said, when I was saying that there are gender differences, it's kind of like I accept that there are differences, but I also accept that women or men are no more suited than the other to do anything else in
We
life.
all suck.
Well, they say our brains work differently. I mean, they say that men use usually one half of their brain, and women use both. But when but there's never been a study that would say that either one is smarter than the other. But maybe they're stronger in different areas, right? But whenever I meet a really strong physicist, a female physicist or female scientist, I don't want to stereotype, but it's a lot of the time a female that's really good at math, for instance, she's usually a lesbian. And I always find that's pretty interesting.
I think
it's very rare that I meet someone who's straight and just in love, except for the chick on Bones. I don't meet too many, hardcore atheist scientists, non-lesbians.
But I think them being lesbians,
obviously.
it could be. I mean, every woman I know is that the number one cause of making women lesbians are men.
Yes, they chose to be gay.
It's just like I can't deal with it. Guys
And that's another thing about religion. It's like, when did you choose to be straight?
Yeah.
It's like, when you hear about Bachman's husband, who's so in the closet, in my opinion, but
Well, I
I'm gonna
chose to
get
be
in trouble
I chose to be straight after my first baptism, and I didn't enjoy what happened.
or you hear these guys who are like, well, being gay is easier, and I'm like, easier because you don't have to deal with women, and it's like, being ostracized and murdered for what you do in the privacy of your own home, that's easier. It's like, you can't even get married, which is so silly to me. If you're two consenting adults and supposed to be,
But that just
equal.
leads to bestiality, multiple wives.
of course.
Of course. Of course. I
If there was a
idea.
religion that said you could be gay, it'd be okay.
But there is now a
love
religion
the
of file
idea.
sharing. Sorry, anyway. There really is.
I love the idea that people choose to be gay because, like, I remember when I was in high school, one of my closest friends came out, and I could not imagine anyone, if it was a choice, what a fucking terrible choice that is. It's like,
Oh, but it's fabulous.
I'm
Right?
already on
So
the
mean.
social margins. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna choose to be gay that way and make things just completely worse for myself.
He just
because-
loves getting attention. That's all. Just
I'm sure that's the rationale for people who say shit like that.
It's rebelling. That's my favorite. It's rebelling.
he'll grow out
Atheists
of
too,
it.
rebelling against our
God.
Yeah, I don't
yes,
think
our
this is a phase. This
archetypal
isn't a phase.
father patriarchal BS. Yeah, it's a phase, right?
No,
That's what I've been told. I've been
not a
told.
phase.
I had a pagan friend tell me, he was like, "Yeah, Cara, I was into atheism in college too." And then I was like, I said, but
dabbled.
okay, does that mean I'm going to become pagan like you eventually? I don't know what that means. It's like, no, it's like it doesn't make any sense that I'm going through a phase because some things
You know now,
there's-
but you will get Alzheimer's and you won't remember anything. It's a
all the
phase.
famous atheists that I know don't do deathbed, conversions. Or if they do, it's always a myth, Like, I don't know too many people that once they're atheists turn back, turn back to religion. Do you?
I'm sure it happened. I mean, Francis
sure it
Collins,
does
it did. We just mentioned him.
Oh yes.
But
special
but I think Dawkins sort of summed it up best, and he probably said it in it had to be the God Delusion, where he was saying, like, it's a historical trend. People used to believe in many gods, and
Right.
then that number dwindled, and now people believe in one God, and you've just taken the next step. You've just ceased believing in. They believe in one more God than you do. and
Yeah,
you
why-
don't- You're at zero.
Why don't Christians believe Muhammad's the prophet? The same reasons, We don't. The same reasons we don't believe.
Because there's not money in Mohammed.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a natural progression, and as science improves and education improves and the gaps diminish, Yahweh will just be another myth.
Yeah. Secularism is just better, everything improves. I mean, charities even are more successful and efficient than religious charities. And you see these surveys, like the most atheist countries are more charitable. They have higher education, they have better health care. There's, I guess, I would think they'd be happier.
Wrong.
What?
And I remember seeing a survey done a few years ago. The only time I ever saw that was wrong was with hospitals.
Hospitals?
You're saying Christian hospitals do better?
Religious run hospitals, Catholic in particular, had the highest successful outpatient rate than
but then Mother Teresa's hospital didn't do
had
so.
the worst.
Is that because more people go to them and that there's more of? I mean, because you can get a Catholic church anywhere.
It's a percentage of
Catholic.
outpatients.
What's that?
It's a percentage of outpatients.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's
then, the religions were
successful
like
treatment. Yeah.
So the religious churches are using science to do better with outpatients. Very nice.
Yeah, you're
Well,
using
the
science.
I would say that that's
Catholics believe in
probably like
evolution anyway.
if they're an outlier like that, there's probably some reason for them to be an outlier.
Because they
Well,
were
they say,
praying.
I think it might have something to do with morale, because morale supposedly helps boost your immune system, which is, I think, logical. And Dano Dennett talks about that. But I guess they're probably more involved. And maybe it's a placebo effect. Maybe they report to be happier, these patients, when they get out. They maybe report to be emotionally happier because of maybe more attention, spiritual.
I don't know. I was in a coma for a week, and I was in a Catholic hospital, and they said after I was released from the hospital and went home for like 6 months after that, everybody said I was more violent than I've ever been in my life.
Violent?
Yes, because I had a head injury. My brain was swelling and
Well,
stuff.
yeah. I met
and
someone
I blamed
who
it
got
on
an
the
accident
church.
and their whole personality changed because they got hit in the head.
They got hit.
Yeah, that part of the brain that controls like inhibitions and personality. It's Phineas Gage. You ever heard that
Jason
story?
is the way he is?
I will kill you. Shut up.
But we're talking about okay. There's religion where they say pray instead of use medicine.
Yeah.
You see these kids dying all over the
Oh,
place.
that is the
Or
worst.
the witchcraft in Uganda. They're like, let's pray the sickness away. Or and then you got Mother Teresa, who would have these poor dying people, and she said suffering makes you closer to Christ. It was just awful,
Yeah, we've said that before that the church does not have the monopoly on good works.
Of course, yeah. Even Queen said that. Queen of England.
And who's the better charitable person? The person that does something good because it's the right thing to do,
for the sake of goodness,
or the person that is doing it for some reward or fear of some punishment.
Exactly.
I don't buy it. I don't know, the Catholic Church. People say that they feed the poor or clothe the poor and feed the hungry, but they do it out of a sense of winning people over,
Right.
not out of the
Well,
sense
the
of right
soup
and wrong.
kitchens, they preach to them while they feed them, But
No, they preach to them before they feed them. If they don't sit through the sermon, you can't get the food.
That makes sense. But you hear all these stories about the missionaries, Catholic missionaries, going to Africa and telling the most AIDS-ridden country and continent not to use condoms. It's more dangerous to use condoms than to get AIDS. Or there's rumors that there's holes in the condoms and stuff like that, and that is so detrimental. I mean, I think that probably outweighs the good they do. I don't know, but.
The person that goes to an AIDS-ridden country and spreads a lie that says that condom use is more dangerous than
with the
AIDS,
disease, that's much
just
more
evil.
dangerous
That's
than
my definition.
Don't you
of
think
evil.
spreading disease is much more dangerous than not feeding?
No, because in the
People-
Bible, disease was spread all the time, and if it's good enough for the
By
Bible, it's
Demons.
demons?
pestilence.
I'm here
and
to
the-
exorcise the demons.
But I think
another. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Another reason why I think religious thinking is so prevalent is the movies. You see all these movies and they just always have these storylines, these plots where the scientist always turns out to be duped and he's wrong and he's ousted by the supernatural factor. Have you ever noticed that in a lot of movies?
But I think that trend is turning, though. I think that
I don't know. Zombies are still doing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like now we're seeing, like we've had the 2 Sherlock Holmes movies, and that was right. I mean,
Yes.
Conan Doyle was a nut
Yay.
and a believer, but the ultimate message in the Sherlock Holmes movies was that the super rational succeeds.
Yes.
Where the
Yes.
super rational succeeds over the supernatural.
Well, they're British and British.
Yeah, maybe.
The British are. They're
Well,
usually
but there's truth to that because only in America or America associated films is that there's always someone who survives. There's always a victory and a happy ending on it. Not in most other countries.
right. They'll change the endings in some movies.
Yeah, and
they'll-
everybody dies, and there's no happy endings, and
Right.
this is real.
But yeah, they sometimes use the scientist as the bad guy. Have you noticed?
The scientist has always been the bad guy.
But we could also watch Fox News, and the Muppets is anti-capitalist.
Or those pseudo documentaries like What the Bleep, who totally take scientific language and borrow it and then misinterpret it and make tons of money, like Deepak Chopra or whatever his name is.
Fuck, I hate that guy.
And that's prevalent in a lot of movies too. I mean, that's that idea of that new agey thinking, and a lot of people think that's actually more dangerous because of the alternative medicine type of thinking. It's like, do you know Tim Minchin?
Yes, I love
And
Tim Minchin.
that Storm animated video.
Yep.
You guys need to watch that. Go on
Yeah,
YouTube,
Storm is
look up
good.
Storm. But he talks about what they call alternative medicine that's been proven to work.
Medicine.
And this idea that there's a giant conspiracy between all the pharmaceutical companies and that drugs are just a way to keep you a zombie or some nonsense like that. Just like the same.
Well, the truth of that has gotten distorted throughout.
Yeah. I mean, there's.
because it is
nothing's
true that the way the laws are written now, you cannot patent anything that's natural. You
Yes.
cannot. So it is in the interest of the pharmaceuticals to make synthetic whatever is natural, so they can make money off of it.
Right.
That part is true,
That is
and
true.
that is a driving force of the pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
It's that idea that is kind of
Yeah.
manifested into
Like these don't trust science,
There's stuff that does stuff, and then there's stuff that doesn't.
Yeah.
and I mean, that's right. You can break it down like that. And pharmaceutical companies, if they're synthesizing a natural compound, it's still stuff that does stuff.
yeah.
Right.
Whereas,
They just exploit it.
Well, and I think that what I'm saying is the original argument was the fact that
Well,
you're not getting yes, you're getting the synthetic and it's the same compounds and whatever, but it's just it's the idea of that you're not getting it from its natural source.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and that was the original argument.
Right.
And it's been
I
distorted
completely
since then.
I completely agree. But think about it. We had this. Everybody thinks this conspiracy, right? With the scientists, and then they leap to this conclusion that if they're lying about that, then they're lying about evolution, and the fossils aren't real, and I'm like, well, these are the same people that invented penicillin. It's like,
Well, people
or
already
trying
think-
to cure cancer. I'm like, but they're lying to you, all of them. I'm like, what? This doesn't.
Simultaneously.
And about the fossils,
Denial.
it's already been proven the fossils are not real because, as I've been
Satan
told,
buried them.
Satan put them there to test our faith.
Well, I heard that, but I also heard that God put him there
To test
test
our
our
faith.
faith. I also heard the Jews put him there.
Damn it!
It was a triple
Aliens.
like,
Aliens. We haven't had that
alliance between the
hypothesis.
Jew,
So-
Satan, and God.
They're all the same thing, like the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's all the one thing that I get confused of. Jesus is God. God is the Holy Spirit.
But it's monotheistic
I'm
at the
scared.
same time.
when you talk about the fossils,
He
I
works
love
in
the
mysterious
story of because all of the creation,
should play that
creationist
song.
argument, they always throw out like that argument, like, oh well, they were wrong about this. What else were they wrong about? And they always
At
throw
least
out.
they concede that they're wrong. They
yeah.
don't try to.
Piltdown Man always gets thrown out there because that was a fraud. And
Right.
But and it was, and it's not like Piltdown, and it always gets thrown out that Piltdown Man was a fraud. And they're like, see, it was a fake fossil, and it's but that's not the whole story. There's always like more to it.
Of course.
And the whole story is that this fossil showed up, and it didn't fit with all of the other fossil records that had been, gathered up to that time. So they were like, they ignored it. It got put away in a drawer somewhere, and it wasn't for another 50 years that somebody was just randomly doing samples was like, hey, this is a fake. It was determined to be a fake after it had already been marginalized and forgotten about. Mm-hmm. So, science is that self-correcting, regimented philosophy that seeks truth.
Well, if you want to see a modern
about the truth.
If you want to see a modern day fight between science and religion, you look at global warming right now, because the religious right are using global warming to prove God's existence or to get people to run away from it. They're saying that the conservatives, there's a sect of our population that believe that it does not exist, it is not happening. God would never allow this to happen. And they're using that on their favor to prove, global warming is fake, so all science is fake. Right. And if you watch that argument, I think everybody should be watching this argument and participating in it, because it is so fascinating. It's scary how much the religious right are using that in their favor to. Well,
I love people who argue that scientists think too much, that's a bad thing. They're not using their intuition. And I'm like, well, intuition isn't always right. It can be, but a lot of times intuition, when it feels like intuition, is really just logic, But another thing is media. You have these reports of some miraculous something happening, and then people are too lazy they'll retract it, or they'll find out the real story behind it, and then no one pays attention to that. Yeah. No one, checks up on what really happened. It's all sensationalism now in the media.
That sells newspapers.
Of course, it's all ratings. And people just don't care about the truth anymore, which I'm sure it's always kind of been that way.
But good story with facts.
We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. And that's what it is. Facts ruin stories.
What did you say? Reality has an unkind liberal bias. Yeah, but if you think about and here I am. I'm sitting here and I'm talking about science is only concerned about the truth, right? But and I know there's this conspiratorial mindset where the person who buys into the conspiracy theory, they feel like they have the truth. Right. They have the truth. They're going to let you in. It's a secret. But science isn't a big secret. You can crack any book. It's out there. It's not like it's a secret, right? It's the truth that's being broadcast. Only nobody's listening.
Right.
But it's really hard.
Yeah, right, and it's hard.
It takes time. You have to read and.
Well, Bill Nye said it the best. He said the science that works on Mars works on the moon, that works on the Earth. And it will work in this country, and it will work in another country.
It's universal.
Yes.
Just like math,
He goes.
Well, what does he know? He thinks the moon doesn't give off its own light.
What? We're a religious group. We're out of here. No, we have 2 minutes, people.
Bill O'Reilly, the tides just go in and out. Nobody knows why. Did you hear what Neil deGrasse Tyson said in response to that? And that was the first time I've ever seen him actually he's probably the ambassador for being the best science communicator, I guess.
He's this generation's Carl Sagan.
Yeah, and he's doing the Cosmos, I hear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're doing a remake.
They're relaunching Cosmos, all new episodes.
Yeah, he's so cuddly.
Hosted by Neil deGrasse Tyson.
He's a warm and cuddly guy.
Very exciting.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I always go off
what
these
did he
tangents.
What did he say to O'Reilly?
He just said, basically he had to spell it out for him. You have to look it up on YouTube. But he pretty much said it was the God of the gaps argument. He's like, he said it very nicely. He was like, if you're going to think like that, you have to, I mean, pretty much just give up on gravity as well. I mean, it's just
Yeah. Well, Riley's an idiot.
it just kills any desire to keep searching for answers, or it's not going to benefit us, you know. But what I love, what he always talks about, is how we have to care about NASA because stuff like that, and because if an asteroid comes, you know, we're dead. You know, it's one thing we need to be aware of. I mean, you know, some people think that's how the dinosaurs went or whatever. But that's another interesting thing too, that the fact that people don't understand how big the universe is and how old it is and how long we've been here in comparison to the other species on the earth. Minute. I mean, we've been here so much shorter than in so many other species that have died. And, you know, how old the earth is and how hard it is to live on the earth, and there's parts on the earth that you can't live, and how, I mean, the universe is not conducive for life. So that whole argument of fine tuning is just very, I don't know, just doesn't make sense to me.
But the dinosaurs live with the humans anyway. We killed them.
Right.
Right.
I saw Jesus riding on a raptor.
I saw that photo too.
I love that.
But you know what? I think Ken should take us out on a raptor.
Well, before you start,
yeah.
Cara, tell us about your Facebook page.
My Facebook page.
Yes.
Maybe she
Where can they
didn't.
find you on Facebook? Because you are the maven of atheist news articles and science information on Facebook.
It's Cara Isadora McKinney. I don't have an official page, but yes, I am. That's
really?
What,
Then
yeah,
you need to leave.
Right. Yeah, but that's what I talk about more than anything. I mean, I might once in a while talk about some personal things, like I went to the store or whatever. But I'm usually I have about
What'd you
5,000 friends, so I network a lot with a lot of prominent atheists around the world. So I'm constantly getting information from them. So yeah, add me, and if they have a Facebook friend limit, so I might have to open another page eventually. But
Now you're just bragging.
I'm so popular.
Everybody likes me.
Oh, and I'm a singer too. So if you guys like
any gigs?
like the opera, yeah, if you know any gigs in the opera scene or the trip hop scene, you know, I'll try to post some of those too. But it was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you.
It was great having you.
Well, thank you.
So I guess if that's everything, I'll take us out. So
To dinner.
we always want everyone to send us feedback. Let us know what you think. Do you think we should just give the show to Cara? I mean,
It's the hydrocodone, okay?
yeah.
Broke my foot.
And if you have any comments like that, you can call us. We have a voicemail you can leave a message on, 757-337-2195. You can email us, non-religious@zombie-popcorn.com. You can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/thisnonreligiouslife. You can put us in your circles on Google+. You can subscribe to our newsletter. All of this can be found on the website, zombie-popcorn.com. So, iTunes. You can listen to us on your iPod as well, and rate us and leave feedback.
We're all over the place.
We really are. It's hard for me to keep track. So I guess that's it.
Yay.
I will see you all next week.
Next time, thanks.
Bye.
This got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. This got out here. Then I read that Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I am a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian. The very lies the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ.